Thank you, everybody, for coming to this presentation of your roadmap to a business that's easy peasy lemon squeezy. My name's Angie Knoll. Thank you for joining us. It's a great community of entrepreneurs, and I really feel like if we stick together, our community of entrepreneurs is even stronger. So supporting each other is super important. I'm introducing Kitty Conroy and Amanda Dar. They are my sales and marketing geniuses, and they even help me with technology, which I always struggle with. So they are here to assist if you experience technical issues. And if you have questions, you can post them in the chat. They'll most certainly make me aware of the questions that are there. So Kitty, you'll have to interrupt me because I will have to switch screens to see questions in the chat. So just give me that heads up.
I will do so.
Okay, thank you. So I've wanted to do this webinar kind of repeatedly because I have been in business for 18 years and I have never felt like running my business is very easy, right? It's always been a challenge for me. And as business owners, I know that I'm not the only one that struggles with it. We only know what we know. So it's always this constant learning more, adding that to our book of knowledge so that we can solve the newest problem that we might be experiencing that we have not experienced in the past. And as my business has grown to over 7 figures, I just know that I'm experiencing different problems than I was when it was $100,000 business, a $200,000 business. I have a different set of problems today, and one can say I'm blessed to have a different set of problems, but nonetheless, they are problems. And so I have to constantly be re-swizzling and rethinking about what the business needs, right? So business has never been easy for me, but what I will tell you is that with the right roadmap, with the right metrics in place so that I can measure things, I really do feel that business is something that is I can excel at, right? I can recognize the problems easier because I have the right metrics and measurements in place to help me to avert disaster before it happens. So having been in business for 18 years, the lowest point in my business happened to me in 2011. And at that point, I had been in business for about 5 years and I had 3 part-time employees. I was the only full-time employee in the business. I was constantly going to 8 a.m. Chamber of Commerce events. I was going to women in business lunches. I was doing the after hours cocktails and networking, things of that nature, because there was no Zoom in those days. So, I was getting up in the morning, putting my business suit on, and heading out to meet with people face to face. And obviously, there's some good things and bad things about that. But at that time, it was literally exhausting. I was working my butt off. I worked way more than my 40 hours of work per week. And I could never understand that perfect trifecta of keeping my clients happy, keeping myself happy and paid, and making sure that the people working for me, the 3 part-timers, were happy and experiencing a good work environment. In my personal life, it was also a really challenging time. I had 3 kids, and their ages were 7, 5, and 2. Now, if you think about those ages, like you just need more hands, right? When you're working with kids that age, you could use octopus hands. You'd need 8 to keep everything going correctly. So that was a struggle. And my marriage was kind of falling apart. Honestly, it was falling apart. My sweet husband was mad, and he had reason to be mad because he had to make all the money for our family because I wasn't making any money. I couldn't quite figure out that trifecta of how to make money. So there he was trying to earn all the money for the family on top of paying for childcare because we had to have mom working. So I'm working, it's an additional expense. And then on top of it, I'm leaving early and coming home late. So he's not getting support on the early morning stuff or the after hours stuff when the nanny isn't working. So he was exhausted too. So what we did is we planned a little getaway to the North Woods of Wisconsin, and we headed up there. We were staying in a friend's cabin because we certainly didn't have our own enough money to rent a place for a few days. And it was that magical time that we're getting really close to now between Christmas and New Year's, where the world kind of settles and goes a little bit quieter, and you just get to sit and have a little bit of relaxation. So we headed up to the North Woods. We went for a walk. It had just snowed and it was a beautiful sunny day. But nonetheless, we were arguing, and I don't even remember what we were arguing about. It was such a difficult time for me. Like, just everything was stressing me out. Most of all, the business and how to balance everything. So we're walking along on this beautiful snowy day, and I can't focus. We're fighting about something silly. And I just ended up like exploding. There was so much anxiety and stress built up inside of me that I pushed this poor guy down in the snow. I hopped on top of him and I'm just hitting him. I mean, this poor guy, I mean, what's he to do? Like, he was just questioning me on some of, my choices, and he ends up getting beaten down in the snow. So that was in 2011. It was honestly the lowest point in my business. I decided things had to change. I had to start understanding my business better. I needed to speak the language of my business. I needed to be able to understand and decipher what it was trying to tell me so that I could be more proactive. One thing that just appealed to me lately is that I realize now more than ever, as my business has kind of grown, that I do not want to be the thermometer in the room that is taking the temperature. I want to be the thermostat that's setting the temperature, that everything is proactive, that I know what's coming. And that is just a super powerful analogy for me. And it's one that I think I have a handle on now after 18 years in business, after trying to understand what is it that I need to know that's going to make my business easier. And what makes it easier for me is this ability to have metrics and measurements in place that make sense to the greater infrastructure of the business. So that's what we're going to talk about today, because I don't believe that following your gut is enough. You need to see some numbers, you need to see some metrics, you need to see some feedback to make sure that you are in a place where you are understanding your business and you can identify what's broken in the business now. So I talk about Pandora's box. I really didn't know what Pandora's box was, but it turns out that it's named after a Greek mythology woman. And Pandora was said to be the first woman on Earth. Her husband gave her this beautifully adorned box as a gift. And he said, take this gift, but don't open it. Pandora, I don't want you to open that box. And of course, curiosity overwhelmed Pandora, and it drove her to open the box and see what's inside. Legend has it that all the illness and all the hardships of the people of the world started coming out of that box. And Pandora was absolutely frightened. So she tried to close the box so that nothing more could come out. And what happened then is that she was locking in all those hardships and all those illnesses However, they needed to come out. Hope needed to come out. Hope had to come out of that box. We had to be able to see past hardship, past illness, and make better choices. So in the end, hope does come out of the box, out of Pandora's box, and it's in the midst of disarray. When we can put together and identify patterns amidst chaos and disarray, then we have hope, right? So you may be discouraged by a lack of clarity in your business. And that's what we're here to discuss is there is hope when you can take a look at future dynamics, at key metrics, and track things and be able to be proactive and make decisions beyond what your gut is telling you to do. So that's how Pandora fits into this scenario. And the other thing that we look at when we're talking about small business is this concept of the business priority pyramid. So the business priority pyramid is based on a book by Mike Michalowicz. It's called Fix This Next. So here's the book. I'm a Mike Michalowicz follower. I drink the Kool-Aid. I have a swanky Fix This Next certified advisor. I'm also a mastery level profit first advisor, and I'm a pumpkin planner. So I've got all these swanky certifications that Mike has made up. And I think that they're really fantastic because Mike's concepts are absolutely practical to our environment today. And this concept of the business priority pyramid is such that every small business out there has this same level of priorities, and it builds from the bottom up. So what we can see then is that every business needs to have a basis of sales, and that's the creation of cash, followed by profit, which is the creation of stability. After we've got sales and profit identified, then we can work on creating more efficiency through the process of order. And after there's efficiency and order in your business, then we start looking at impact, which is creating transformation within our products and services, making people raving fans of your product or service. And the last is the creation of permanence through legacy. So that's kind of building your business beyond what you have personally. So it's a bottom to top concept, and that priority pyramid is such that it's a hierarchy. We have to have sales first and solve most of our sales issues before we can move into profit, order, impact, and then finally legacy. So it's a bottom-up approach. We're putting a question up in the chat here about if you were to look at your business today and to think about what is your broken link among these 5 sections, among sales, profit, order, impact, or legacy, what would that be? What would you choose is the thing that's most broken today? And then that's the thing that we'll get into a little bit more and talk about measurements and how one can measure that. So the other thing I want you to notice within this business priority pyramid is that there is a get-give approach. And the get-give approach is such that the basis of any small business, the priority is that we have to get before we can give, right? So the get concepts of creating sales, of building a profit, and building order are going to support you as you move into this give philosophy of creating impact and making people love your product, of creating legacy and helping the world be a better place. Okay, so our businesses have power to hit all of those levels. However, that being said, the process is such that we have to focus on the give first. Okay, so I'm sorry, on the get first. Did I say that wrong? Okay, so we have to focus on the give first, get first. Okay, and what I would say about that is that the get side of it is that we work best when we're in a place of comfort and security. And that's not unlike this business priority pyramid. So when we're in a position of fear, like fear that we don't have enough cash flow, fear that we won't be able to pay our mortgage or put food on the table, we do irrational things because we have anxiety and we're scared, right? So the purpose of this business priority pyramid is understanding that first we have to get before we can give back. So that's super important. Our poll has ended and we're looking at order as being the most significant concern for our clients today. So order is a part of the get section of the business priority pyramid. And what we're going to do next then is go into these 3 different levels. And maybe by going through these 3 different levels, we're going to better be able to understand maybe a broken link, your single biggest broken link. And that would be based on this order of sales being first. Okay, so sales is the bottoms up philosophy of this business priority pyramid. And we've just seen Pandora's box open and look at the 5 things that are coming out of the sales box. So how do I speak the language of my business? Well, 1, I have to understand lifestyle congruence. So lifestyle congruence is being able to reverse engineer how much you sell so that you can pay yourself the amount that you want to pay yourself. And I'm not talking about paying yourself for fancy vacations and fancy cars. You do that with profit. But to be able to pay yourself in a lifestyle congruence method, it's how much do I need to feel safe and secure? So it is paying for your mortgage. It is paying for your car payment. It is paying for food on the table, but it's not paying for the 18-course meal at a, high-end restaurant. Okay, so that's how lifestyle congruence is different from things that you can do with profit. So we have to understand how many widgets do I have to sell to meet my basic needs, right? Because there's going to be all these expenses that come out after I sell the widget. And I need to know how many widgets need to be sold in efforts to support my basic needs. The other thing that we have to do in sales, obviously, is prospect attraction. So prospect attraction is such that we have to find people that are willing to buy our product or services. It's that simple. How are we going to attract the clients that we want to do business with? And that sounds like a simple thing. Yeah, we got to attract prospects, but it's really not as simple as one would like it because there's only so much time in the day and there's only so much money in the bank. So we can't just throw stuff at the wall and see if it sticks. We have to be strategic about how we're going to attract prospects. So we're looking for our sweet spot. And in the sweet spot, that's where our top clients align with our unique offering and we are able to provide that product effectively and efficiently. So it means that we're providing a top product to clients who want that product or service, and they're willing to pay for it because it is really helping them solve for a problem. So that's what prospect attraction is all about. And then once you get the prospects into the door, you still have to convert them into clients. So that is your sales funnel. It can be your marketing funnel too. So how do I not only attract the right audience, but then convert them into a paying customer? The other part of sales that often isn't thought of is delivering on commitments. People think of this as something that maybe is in the production side or the order side of things, but not necessarily sales. However, what Mike is saying in Fix This Next is that delivering on commitments is very much a part of the sales process, because if we don't deliver on the commitments for which the client has prepaid or will pay after the fact, then we have nothing to sell. We're going to go out of business real quick. So it's very important that we are delivering on the commitments as promised, and not more, not less. And then the last part of that is collecting on commitments. So collecting on commitments is accounts receivables. It is about getting that money in the door, about being rewarded for delivering on the commitments that you have promised to the client. So this whole process, I like to call an AC/DC process. An AC/DC, my favorite song, they're a band, You Shook Me All Night Long. I'm so happy with that song. It was a lovely song. But in this case, what AC/DC means is to attract, A, to C, convert, to D, deliver, and to C, collect. So we have to have a process of attracting the client, then converting the client, then deliver our products and services, and then collect on the commitments. So those are the 4 steps in any sales cycle. And they may reverse order. Sometimes we collect before we deliver. I know we do that a lot at Reconciled Solutions. So maybe ours is A, C, C, D, something like that, right? So there's 3 types of ways that we can grow our sales. And I just want to cover those 3 types of ways. One is for new opportunities and new customers, right? So those are 2 different things. Having a new opportunity would be selling a new thing, selling a new widget. Where having a new customer is having a new customer on the same widget that we have been selling, and or adding in a new product or service that a new customer could purchase. The other thing we can do is to have opportunity come from within. So if our client base is the same, but we sell more products and services to one company, then that's a place where we're increasing the depth and the breadth of our offering by selling to the same limited audience, but selling them more. And the third type of sales and ways to increase sales is just to do a combo of both. So it's to do a combo of looking for new opportunities, which is what can I sell? Looking for new clients, which is new people that have not purchased your product or service before. And the third thing is for expanding breadth and depth of what you sell within your current client base. So those are the different ways that we can sell. And for most people, sales has to be a function of a combination act. So the next thing we're talking about then is profit. So how do we open up the discussion for improving profit now that we have a basis for sales in our business? There's 5 things that we think about when we think about profit. The first is debt eradication. So debt eradication is about choosing to eliminate debt over borrowing more than the business can support. So it's about, you may have had to borrow debt, but do you have to continue to borrow debt? And are you looking for a way to eradicate some of the debt that's in place? We have to look at margin health when we're talking about profitability, and that is knowing your revenue overall and by revenue stream. So most importantly, we want to understand these are my 3, 4, 5, 12 different revenue streams. These are the different things that we provide. And then these are the costs that are associated with providing each of those products. And the result is an overall gross profit and a gross profit per product line per service. So at Reconciled Solutions, I just want to talk about the silos of income that we have. So at Reconciled Solutions, we offer ongoing services. So that is one of our silos of revenue. And we have a stack of costs that support doing ongoing bookkeeping, accounting, and coaching services. Okay. That stack of costs looks different than the stack of costs for a one-time client, a consultation client. They might need a software transition. They might need some coaching through a sale, through a business sale. Those are one-time jobs, and we have a different stack of costs as it relates to that. We resell a lot of subscriptions. So we're doing a fair amount of selling of QuickBooks subscriptions. And so we pay for the subscriptions from Intuit, and then we resell it to our customers at a little bit of a markup. So that would be a different revenue stream for us. Now, when I'm looking at planning and forecasting, I'm looking at all the revenue streams combined, but I'm also looking at each individually so that I know that they can stand on their own. And this is where that important concept of the lost leader comes in. So the lost leader is something that you might be selling for people to come into the door, but you're not making a great margin on it. But the purpose of selling it that way at this great price or discount, what have you, is that it might lead to more sales that have better margin health. So looking at margin health, as you're making product decisions and marketing decisions is extremely important. And you want to look at it both from the perspective of overall margin health and then individually in the different services that you offer, products or services. Transaction frequency is a way to increase profit. Transaction frequency is literally what it sounds like. It's instead of buying a widget from you every 6 months, can you sell people a widget every 6 weeks? So we want the frequency to happen more often. Maybe it's smaller bites, maybe it's bigger bites, but frequency increases profitability. Then profitable leverage. What does profitable leverage mean? It means that if I'm going to borrow $1 from a banker or a private investor, that I can have predictable returns. Okay, so this is again back to that budgeting and forecasting. And this is why if you go to the bank and you say, I need $100,000 to keep my business afloat, they're going to want to look at the profitability of what you've got going on. So there's people that are trying to borrow that may not have the leverage to pay that loan back, and they're not going to want to borrow. But if you have a plan for profitable and repeatable leverage, then you're more likely to be approved for that loan. So that's super important. The last thing is cash reserves. We think about cash reserves with regards to things going wrong. Biggest example of that is literally COVID-19 knocked out so many potential businesses, right? Are not potential businesses, real businesses, because business just stopped, and it stopped suddenly for so many folks. And the ending result is a lot of people were knocked out of business. If they had more in cash reserves, they may have been able to re-swizzle and adjust and last longer in that environment. So these are different ways that we focus on profit. The thing that was most appealing for our listeners today was this concept of order and how do I speak the language of my business when it comes to order. So the things that we can do to improve order is to minimize wasted effort. So that's around reducing bottlenecks, slowdowns, inefficiencies. So we have to look at the processes that get the most people stuck in the organization and build a better, more efficient, more effective, more automated process. AI can help with that today. We're doing a lot of work with AI at Reconciled Solutions, where we're taking a look at what can we use AI for so that our jobs become easier, because they're definitely changing, right? AI is changing the world, and we need to be on board with it. We don't want to be in a situation where everybody else has implemented AI and we're still hanging around behind, reluctant. So minimized wasted effort, in my opinion, is one of the ways that AI can support my business the best, right? I'm figuring out faster, more automated ways to do the same things that we've been doing. Role alignment is extremely important within regards to running your business. So role alignment is about making sure that people's responsibilities are matched to their talents. We did a survey recently, and people asked people about how to divide responsibilities effectively and efficiently. And one of the big things that came out of that is when to hire. People didn't know when to hire for what and if they could afford to hire. And those are super big issues. And that really comes into role alignment and how do you measure role alignment. So one of the ways that you can do that is to measure excitement and engagement within your team. So who's excited and engaged when they're coming to meetings? Who's not excited? Who's tired, lazy, late to meetings? Those are ways that we know if people's roles in the company are suited to their talents and their skills. And we want everybody, and everybody wants to be in a position that fulfills them. So we're looking for that opportunity to make sure that the roles that an individual has, and in small business, we have the opportunity to do so many different things, right? Because each person wears so many hats. We want to make sure that the roles that the individual wears are in alignment with their talents. And then there's outcome delegation. So in the scenario of order, what we look at in outcome delegation is, are people who are closest to the problem, are they enabled to change it? Are they empowered to change it? So if you're in a professional services industry like we are, we have to look at new technology all the time and test it and see if it's a fit, okay? And we have clients who have varying levels of comfort and discomfort with technology processes. So one of the things that we do with outcome delegation is to help our clients figure out which software to use and if it's going to make things more orderly and smoother and faster, or if the technology learning curve is just too steep, or if the technology doesn't do the things that they need it to do. So identifying the key criteria for that technology and what needs to be measured and grabbed. Linchpin redundancy. This is the ability to be able to walk away from your business and take a vacation, and or just because you have something else going on that's equally important, and for that business to be able to operate without you. And it's not just the owner, in terms of small business and entrepreneurship, we always think first of the owner and is there linchpin redundancy within the owner's responsibilities. But as an organization infrastructure grows, we also have to think about linchpin redundancy with regards to the other people in the company and the work that they're doing. So every key role needs to have a backup plan so that if that person is unable to attend to the tasks and responsibilities, somebody else can step in. So building redundancy into the business is another way to establish order. And the last thing that is in our list of order items here is mastery reputation. So that's about being known in your industry for the thing that you do. This helps you in the sales side, that sweet spot that we talked about earlier, because if you can identify what your company does in a mastery level better than your competitors, then you can build on that. And that order becomes more repetitive, more frequent. So I hear from clients all the time that it is hard to document their processes, right? Because every client's a little bit different. And I would just encourage you to challenge that belief. I do think it's a belief. When you start putting more roles and processes and workflows into place, the more you put in workflows, the more you see opportunity for other things that a workflow could be set up for. So we just had a meeting this morning and it was around price changes and setting up a workflow for how we know if price changes are reflected accurately in our invoice. So we were documenting that process, and that would be an important step in mastery reputation, because once we get that beautiful role alignment and outcome delegation and linchpin redundancy figured out, then that mastery reputation will appear. So the next thing we're going to do is just leave the opportunity up for you to answer the question about what's the biggest problem in your business right now. Before we said, is it sales? Is it profit? Is it order? Is it impact? Is it legacy? This would be more specific. So instead of saying, yeah, my biggest problem is order, I want to say, my biggest problem is linchpin redundancy, or I don't know if I have the right people in the right seats on the bus, something of that nature. So thinking through what your business conundrums are today and trying to figure out what it is right now that's really preventing you from forward progression. So you can answer those and put them into the chat and know that it's private, and know that if you have a question in the chat, I'm happy to answer it, and it will not be announced who it is. In the meantime, I'm going to look at some of the problems with sales. And the reason I'm looking at sales is because I find that most people have some type of problem in sales that's preventing them from moving forward. I got my slides wrong here. Oops. Okay. So as far as measuring sales and our ability to master that section, as the lowest level and the bottom up piece of the business priority pyramid, there was a few different things that we talked about. So we talked about lifestyle congruence. So if you're experiencing any of these things, then I think that you likely have a problem with understanding your lifestyle congruence. So if you don't know how much you need to sell to reach your financial goals, that's a lifestyle congruence problem. If you don't know how much you can afford to pay yourself and have the business still be healthy, that is a lifestyle congruent problem. And if you're clueless on taxes and what am I going to be taxed on here? What am I paying the tax on? What is a business expense? Then that's part of lifestyle congruence. So then the next thing that we look at are some examples of prospect attraction. So if you feel that you don't have enough leads coming in, well, that's something you can certainly measure, right? How are you tracking to measure leads? How are you tracking on which lead source is providing you the most or the best quality leads? So, and then just thinking through, what is a high quality lead in your business and how do you attract those people that you would consider to be a high quality lead? Those are all different criteria that you can measure when thinking about prospect attraction. These are things that you can put on a dashboard and look at month to month to say, how am I trending? Is this lead source still fulfilling my needs? Am I getting enough leads in? Are the quality of the leads good? And do I need to look at a different way of promoting the business so that more or better leads are coming in? So other things that we think about in prospect attraction is if we're not doing a good job on follow through, right? That also goes into client conversion. But thinking through in prospect attraction, is the reason that they're not going into client conversion because you don't have a good follow through process. Maybe you're not clear on which sales and marketing efforts are going to support your business the best. As a small business owner, we only have so much space, right? And I tell people that if you're looking at changing a sales and marketing tool that you use in your business, that really you can only focus on like 2 to 4 items per quarter. So that meaning, okay, if I am going to invest in another professional organization because I think my ideal client, the clients in my sweet spot are hanging out there, then I need to focus all my efforts on how do I integrate with this professional association, right? How do I get the most bang for my buck? And that takes a lot of thought and planning. And so I really recommend that we're not just like, what I see is people throw away advertising money or throw away money on promotional products that maybe aren't driving the business forward. So it's thinking through very specifically, how much bandwidth do I have so that I can focus on really digging into this level of prospect attraction. We also looked at client conversion. So what are some client conversion issues? Well, maybe we're over promising on what we can deliver. Maybe we're under promising on what we can deliver. Maybe that we're not reaching the client conversion because they weren't a good prospect in the first place. And we didn't know how to reach the good prospects. And maybe we aren't choosing our clients, we're letting them choose us. So that's a situation where we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Are these the right clients for us? A few years back at Reconciled Solutions, we had not put in enough policies to identify who are the clients that work best with us. The result was messy. We had a bunch of clients that weren't well suited to working with us. So what we ended up having to do was establish what I call red rope policies. So thinking about the red ropes at a nightclub, like, who's going to let you into the nightclub? Are you on the list? So we put together our own set of red rope policies. And if the potential prospect did not meet the criteria of the red rope policy, we would say, no, we're not interested in doing business. So we would pass on opportunities. So those are some ways that making measurements and measuring different things in the sales environment are going to make your business easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? So the last two that we talk about is delivering on client commitments. So once we get a client to convert, are we being efficient and effective in that onboarding process? Is every step being done in the onboarding process? Is our production quality good? Are we delivering on those client commitments? And did we over deliver? Well, over delivering isn't good because you need to charge more if you're going to over deliver. You need to be able to capture more money. If you're over delivering, same thing as under delivering is a negative experience for a client too, because they think I paid X amount, I should be getting this value from it. And if you're under delivering, you're not providing that. The last sales section that we talked about today is collecting on client commitments. So again, that's back to the collection process. I just published a great, really great 3-part series about the art of collections. And it really is an art because there's a lot more to it than just getting your billing out and collecting that money. Most people are not trying to rip us off. They are willing to pay for what they have agreed to. But if we are not doing our job of creating the art of collections, we're making it harder on ourselves. We want to reduce friction in this area and make it as easy as possible for our clients to pay us. So if we're not clear on payment terms, if we're not clear on billing being messy, if we didn't collect enough up front to get us through the process, if we're not sticking to the progress benchmark points that we had suggested within the client deliverables, then these are all going to impact our ability to collect on our commitments. So those are the different types of digging into sales and issues that can result. So some ways that we can then use this information and utilize it in our business is just thinking through all these different issues and helping yourself to identify what it is you can measure to solve your problem, to solve for your problem, or to identify the problem before disaster happens. So for example, if you see that your leads have slowed and prospect attraction is not as good as it was 6 months ago, you know what that means? That means that there's going to be a cash flow issue 6 months from now because you didn't have enough leads coming in. Or it could be the same thing with client conversions, right? You're getting enough leads, but nobody's converting. And oftentimes we think about that with the cycle of the economy. So what we've experienced this year is it's been a presidential election year. And people are tentative in presidential election year. So they might be more willing to wait on a product than they would have been in a non-election year. So thinking through things like that ends up being ways that we can track within our business, things that we can track within our business to stay ahead of the problem. So if we realize that our leads or our closes are narrowing and we're not getting enough, what can we do today to increase our marketing and sales efforts to bring that number up so that we don't run into a profit problem 6 months from now or whatever your sales cycle is? And if you're thinking about profit and you're trying to avoid problems in order, then, I said that backwards. If you're trying to avoid problems in order, then you probably have to look at profit first. So order is like having everybody in the right seats on the bus, right? It's about being able to train people and have them do the right responsibilities and linchpin redundancy. And if you want linchpin redundancy and you want order, well, then you have to be able to maybe hire another additional resource. If you're going to hire an additional resource, you need to have profitability to be able to do it. So that profitability feeds into your ability to be able to deliver on order. So instead of looking at I need to hire somebody, but I don't have enough money, the backup step of that would be to measure your profitability, to look at that profitability in terms of different revenue streams and where can I sell more, or where are my profit margins not enough? Should I take a price increase? Things of that nature, so that I can deliver more order for my customers. So the free resources available to you today, and Kitty, if you can put this in the chat for the link, is a glossary of terms. So that's just a list of terms that talk about accounting and bookkeeping. So that's important, just because, you know, sometimes this is not your language. This is not the thing that you're most familiar with as a business owner. We've got a glossary of metrics. So those are different things that you can measure in your business and add to a dashboard. And additionally, those metrics are divided up between that business priority pyramid levels. So we have a section of metrics that would measure sales. We have a section of metrics that would be measurements of profit. We have a section of metrics that are measurements of order. So it helps you think, if this is what I want, then that's what I need to measure, right? And also we have another giveaway for frequency of metrics. And frequency of metrics is super important because it shows how often things need to be measured. So some things only need to be measured once a year. Some things need to be measured every day or every week. And it kind of gives you a frequency in which certain metrics would be useful for your business. So I hope you'll take advantage of those different offerings. And I just wanted to thank you for coming to our presentation on running an easy peasy lemon squeezy business. We'll be reaching out to make sure you got your free gifts, and to see if we could help you develop your own roadmap to a business that runs easy peasy lemon squeezy. Thank you.